Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pig's Ear in Review, one of the only shows where we actually discuss what we've been watching, what we've been playing, things going on in the last week with some entertainment. So, my name's Myshtuff. I'm joined by Riku Rose, as always.
Hi.
And what's going on? So, today we have a fun schedule. We're going to be talking about Elden Ring, talking about Switch Sports, and then one of my favorite topics, Star Trek. And I'm representing here with my Star Trek memorabilia T-shirt here. I think I'm gonna try and be themed each time we do one of these now. We got a
Okay.
one comment from the other time about my anime T-shirt when we were talking about that. This time about Star Trek. So for Switch Sports, I was expecting you to dress up, full like tennis gear with like the racket and everything.
From here down, I'm just in ski gear.
Okay. That's the DLC when we start skiing. It's in
Yeah.
preparation for that. Goodness. And actually, even though since we're calling the show Pigs in Review, we actually have a beer this time. So I'm drinking some Yingling.
I've
Got it in
got a
Stella.
Stella Artois.
Very nice. I like that one too. I haven't had a Stella in a while. Yingling, I've been enjoying in the last few years. I feel like it's a good cheaper beer, but like I actually think it's pretty good. It's not like piss water or anything like that.
Well, this is actually back in the UK, nicknamed Wife Beater. No joke.
Really?
Yeah, no, because it was like seen as like, I don't know
My
what it was. I don't know if it was some news articles or something, but it was like, it became like associated with people getting violent while drunk and they drink Stella.
That's funny because I feel like in America there's commercials about it being a somewhat relatively like fancier beer, or
Yeah.
there were like advertisements, but I'm like, is it really though? I mean, I like it, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, is it really supposed to have that kind of connotation?
Yeah, but it's like what is it? The deodorant that everyone wears, Lynx or whatever.
hmm
Yeah, it's like all
Yeah.
the ads try to make that seem like, oh, everyone's gonna love you, and it's like, no, that's what sweaty 13-year-olds wear.
Right, exactly. That's funny. All right, so let's get into it. So a few episodes ago, or I think it was the first one that we started as we started coming back to this, I had mentioned I'd played through all the Dark Souls games and just a never-ending depression-filled month of getting through those.
Wasn't it
And
so much fun?
yeah, look, man, I had a blast. I mean, I honestly did, but once again, I know it's not for everyone. But of course, the big hot game, just in general, of course, is Elden Ring. So it's been out for now, at least I think a couple months by this point. But I started playing it a couple weeks ago, and yeah, just like pretty much every reviewer is saying, it's a great game. So. And it is nice because since I played all of them back to back, and I can very now directly make that comparison because there's plenty of people who it had been a few years since maybe they played the other like Souls games and Bloodborne and stuff like that. But for me, I could kind of make that very quick direct comparison basically. So it was it was interesting because like I was curious, as I said when we talked about Dark Souls, I was like, okay, how are they going to address the kind of accessibility problem where it's just so unclear what you're supposed to do like half the time? And right off the bat, I think they did a good job. Funny enough, they actually just had a patch recently where they made it even easier because people were missing the tutorial section of the game.
Yeah,
Like it's like they just flat out didn't realize there was a certain path you had to go right in the beginning to actually learn how to do some of the mechanics, and people just went like right past it. So now they actually, one of the few times I think the series is like, look, go right here for the tutorial. You probably don't want to miss this, and then it kind of like directs you to where you need to go, thankfully. So it definitely helps you a little bit quicker with learning the mechanics. It's not as vague. And then once again, I think a lot of people like to compare it to Breath of the Wild in the sense that like right off the bat, after that like really quick tutorial area, it's pretty much like a door opens and then the whole world is open. And that's kind of like what happened with Breath of the Wild after you kind of leave that plateau area or whatever it was called. And then it's basically just like go do what you want, pretty much.
do they still point you in a direction? Because even though you could go where you want, I remember in Breath of the Wild, they're like, you see those funny looking rocks over there, like head in that direction.
So they kind of do. So to answer that question, one of the things they do in the game, or in the Dark Souls games, is the places you could save are kind of what they were called like the bonfires. So you would save at them, and they were pretty sparse throughout the land. But in this game, they're little spots called spots of grace or something like that, but it's essentially like a save point, like checkpoint type of thing where things reset, and they're like all over the place. I mean, they're not like too many, but like enough where they've also addressed the issue of like, because in Dark Souls games, like if you die, a lot of times you have to like trek through like 3 minutes of bullshit just to get back to the place you were at, which wasn't very fun. But in this, there are places like that from time to time, but for this case, there's a lot more of those types of save points where you can get back into the action quicker, which is really nice. But the reason why I mentioned that is the key kind of save points that you need to try and find. They're like these little almost bulbs of light with like lines shooting out of them a little bit, and it's kind of in the same sense where it's directing like, hey, if you kind of want to do the main story, you might want to go in that direction. So I would say it does that, but to be honest, even that sometimes isn't quite straightforward. Like, I kind of beat the first couple of main bosses like 3-4 days ago, and to be honest, even from after that, I was like, I know what I have to do. There's like these 7 legendary bosses or whatever that you have to beat, but I'm like, I don't really know what the hell I'm supposed to be doing to like actually find them, which is once again a little bit frustrating. But there is so much other shit to do in this game that I'm actually like, I haven't been bored or like frustrated in that sense, because like every corner you turn, there's some insane geography to explore, cool places to go to, and it's very much like, look, if you encounter something that you can't beat, just go somewhere else for a couple hours and grind up a little bit. And the grinding in this game, I will say, is pretty fun, because I wouldn't even call it grinding; it's just exploring and leveling up, and then you can go back and kind of tackle things. So it's one of those things, because I know, once again, when we talked about Horizon and Ghostwire, I was saying like, yeah, the open world games, not a big fan because I don't give a shit about all this extra stuff. But this is one of those exceptions, kind of like Breath of the Wild, where there's a lot of stuff to do. Like, but it's not like these checkbox quest markers, like get 10 out of 10 things and you get some weird cosmetic whatever. Like, no. There's actually interesting enemies, interesting areas, cool little secrets and stuff like that. So I don't know, like for Breath of the Wild, when you play that, did you actually enjoy doing just that general sort of exploration?
Yeah, because I think the difference with Breath of the Wild and, say, I don't know, I'm going to just throw Assassin's Creed out there because that's like your
Yeah.
generic open world.
Right.
When you got to get to, like, you see something up on a hill,
Hmm.
it becomes a game of how you get up that hill.
Yeah. Hmm.
Whereas Assassin's Creed or Horizon or wherever, I feel like
Hmm.
you just run there. Like, there's no game in getting up there. Whereas,
Right.
like Zelda, you're like, right, I can use that item, or I've not got the energy to climb up there. I'm going to have to come back when I would see things and I'd be like, that's something I've got to come back for later. Mark it on my map, come back later. Or you're like, right, okay. Oh, and the amount of times you're halfway towards something and something else caught your eye and you
Right.
end up running in
Yeah, exactly. That a lot of that, and once again, I think I don't want to keep comparing it to Breath of the Wild, but that I will say it is very close in that sense, because and I will say what's even more interesting about this game, because it is that Souls type of game, is there's very real consequences. So like if you fuck up, you're dead in some cases. Other cases, it's more like you're still on the ground and you might take a little bit of a fall, and fall damage, I will say, has been retooled a little bit as well, where it's not as punishing, but you can still die if it's too far up. But there's other areas where you have to be very precise with how you're jumping, and on top of that, you have a horse that you get pretty early in the game, and you can actually double jump with the horse, which is kind of funny, and you can like get to even more crazy areas. Yeah, it's like I will say the thing that's different about this game is that the verticality is very much I don't want to say it's a feature per se, but
Yeah.
like all the other games, I mean, you really couldn't jump in the other games other than like kind of one of those situations where like you do like an auto jump over like a little gap type of thing. But in this game, as crazy as it sounds, a feature is you have a dedicated jump button now
Yeah.
where you can like get around. And then once again, you have a horse. And so it's, like I said, that verticality is there. And there are some insane set pieces in this game of like the most ridiculous like Coliseum type things, or very intricate dungeons, or it's kind of like Zelda once again, where like you see something in the distance, you're like, how in the hell am I going to get there? But then you also
Hmm.
find out there's different ways to like teleport in certain areas, and then there's yeah, like I don't want to spoil it too much, because I this is I don't want to spoil things in the sense of story, because once again, even for a Souls game, it's a little bit more story than all the previous ones, and like once again, George R. R. Martin sort of helped out with it, which is pretty neat as well.
It's not
So
like he's got anything else to do.
right, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, he's only been working on a book for what, like 20 fucking years or however long it's been. I actually saw an article about that the other day that I think he basically said, yes, I do intend to finish this book.
I think he says that like every month, and everyone just
Just
says like, "Stop
right.
writing this instead. Just write the book."
Yeah, exactly. Um, but like, I don't want to spoil it though in that sense, but more in the sense of exploration, because I think there's probably been clips online of a lot of people, like if you're following Elden Ring, maybe if you've already seen this, and I won't go too in depth, but like there's one part of the game where you're kind of going around, you're finding different things, and there's this little, like, essentially like a little gazebo, very innocent looking. You're like, yeah, whatever, it's probably nothing crazy, and then you go into it, and there's like a little switch for like a platform to go up and down. I will say, what happens after you do that, to the area that it takes you, you would not expect in like a million years of like
Mm.
where it takes you and what it looks like, and then the ensuing kind of battles. And I just thought they're very they've been very good about that with all the previous like Souls games, but in this one they're very good about like hiding these really crazy things, but in seemingly like very non like crazy ways of doing it. It's like very nondescript, and you kind of and I think that's why this game is very good, because it rewards you in that sense. Not rewards you in the sense of like, oh, here's more XP or some other weird costume. It rewards you in the sense of exploration with the cool stuff that it shows you. So I would say at this point though, I think I've put about 18 hours into it if I'm not mistaken. Like main story wise, I think I'm only like a fifth of the way through it in terms of like the mandatory bosses or whatever at that. But that's because I've been doing, like, I'll spend hours honestly just exploring random parts of the map, and sometimes I fuck up and I go places that I should not. And that's what's cool, because it allows you to do that. It's not gonna, it's not like there's an invisible wall usually that says, oh, you shouldn't go here. No, like you'll go there and then you'll get your ass handed to you in a matter of 5 seconds. But in other places you explore, you get some cool stuff and you can kind of challenge it a little bit. So, unsurprisingly, thumbs up. I would recommend it. And I would say, kind of, I was recommending last time, like, what Souls games should you start with? If you want that more older pre-Elden Ring experience, my recommendation still holds true of maybe like the first Dark Souls or Bloodborne. But like, now that Elden Ring is in the mix and you don't particularly care about that history, so to speak, yeah, definitely just start with Elden Ring. I mean, not only is it the most recent one, and oh, I should say I'm not playing online just like before, but if you are, then you can get other people to jump into your game to support you. But you certainly
Did
don't have to
you
by
did you hear about that guy who just comes into everyone's game and
who
one
like, yeah.
he just wants to like take the boss on his own?
Yeah. There's I think, I don't know if it's the final boss or maybe the second to final boss. Yeah, there's this like, I guess you can call him famous player who, if you like, so basically how it works in the game is you can put down like a little item, and you can then make it so you're summoned into other people's games so you can help them. And so what this person is doing is laying down this item next to that boss, and anytime someone needs help, they'll summon that person, but the name is just "Let me solo her." And it's because he's like, just let me kill this person on my own and I can do it. And apparently he has like close to no armor and just this giant weapon, and just kills him or her every single time. And so that's just become kind of a meme, and I think other people have been copying him too. And I will say that's the cool thing about this kind of the general community, not just with this game but like with all of them, is that there's just a fun community with it generally. I mean, there's a lot of people who are assholes, or like the get good kind of folks, which are,
Yeah.
those people are douchebags. But like the genuinely like helpful, good community will do stupid shit like that. And there's all sorts of mods that are coming out for the game on PC. Like I saw one where you can play as like Darth Vader, or like one as Kratos from God of War, and like just stupid shit like that. So yeah, I mean, I would say, if I didn't sell you on all the other games, I would say very much I would highly recommend anyone to play this game. And just to be clear, it's still difficult, but it very much gives you more opportunities to succeed with different ways. And I would say, like, You can craft items in this game. You can summon little helper spirits like dogs, and like I have a giant jellyfish that helps me in battle sometimes too. And like just weird shit like that. And then even though I'm still doing my traditional kind of like strength build where I'm just like a kind of a warrior knight, like with just pure like strength, you can still do a little bit of magic, which I think was a little bit harder to do in the previous games where it was very segmented. But in this, you can put magic on weapons even though you're not like a magic build per se. So yeah, I mean it's infinitely customizable. There's all sorts of videos about different builds you can do. So yeah, I would say it's going to be hard for any other game this year to get Game of the Year. I honestly think Elden
Oh,
Ring, like I'm like, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of good games this year,
yeah.
and probably a few more still to come. But like every single review of this game is damn near perfect, and I mean, I can see why. So I would be. I don't know if you can think of any other upcoming games, or maybe ones we've already talked about that could potentially, like, not even if it's not your type of game, just in terms of like broad appeal, critique of the game being incredible. Like,
I forget what's coming
yeah,
out this year. That's the issue.
Yeah, that too, that too.
Yeah, honestly, it's not looking like the end of the year because of COVID. I don't think they've announced a lot of the stuff because
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of stuff now they're not announcing until it's like 2 or 3 months out.
that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see because I never played the original, but God of War 2, I imagine is going to be out there. God of War Ragnarok.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good point. Hmm.
yeah, you're going to have
Hmm.
games like that, I would imagine. But yeah, bold claim,
Yeah.
bold claim.
Yeah, I think so, and it's just a good game. So like honestly, even though I know once again I probably didn't sell you on the games last time because of just nonstop depression, but
Yeah, I mean, this sounds more up my street. I'm going to be
uh
honest, just
yeah,
based on the open world. Because here's the thing: is most people make an open world game to make an open world game. They
yeah,
don't actually put anything or any thought into the world itself. They just
right,
place the game they want to make in an open world.
right.
Um, this sounds more like that Breath of the Wild route, where they built that world with a lot of thought and care, as well as the game.
Yeah, there you can tell there is intent into just about everything there is.
Yeah,
It's even in the areas where it's more open fields and you like, and this is the beauty of these types of games. Even in the areas where you think, oh, I'm just on my horse from one point to the next. There doesn't seem to be anything here. I like 9 times out of 10 guarantee you there is something there, either good or something that will absolutely fuck you over at a moment's notice. And that's the thing. And I'm coming back to where I was saying when I was beating the other games, no other series has given me like this much anxiety. And like I know that sounds like a negative, but in a sense, I guess, if it's just nonstop, it is. But there are times where like it forces you to pay attention. I guess is my
yeah,
point. Like it's not very much a passive experience. I guess it's a very
yeah.
active experience. At least, I mean, there are times, yes, where you can as well. I don't want to make it sound like you could never like just stop like, and it's
I
just
just want
always
to
heart
check
attack.
Twitter while fighting someone with the square button.
Exactly, exactly. Most of the time, you will not be able to do that. So
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. I think if you want that type of experience and it's more approachable than all the previous games, I would very much recommend it. And yeah, like I said, I don't play online, but for people who do, apparently it's a good experience. But I'll say this: if you end up getting it, let me know. I will sub to PlayStation Plus for a month and we can play together because I will. That is a fun part you can do, where you can tackle those types of things
Yeah.
together. So.
All
So,
right. So
anyways, Elden
thumbs up,
Ring,
you were saying?
yes,
Yeah.
I would say thumbs up. Check it out. Yeah, you can't go wrong with playing the game. It's a fun time. So,
Okay.
all right, over to you.
So I played Nintendo Switch Sports.
The Dark
Uh,
Souls of sports games.
yeah. Honestly, it's so hard. Um, so Wii Sports, I loved at the time.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who go back and shit on the Wii, but in 2007 or 8 when it came out, everyone loved
Mhm.
the Wii at first, and
Oh, of
you can
course. Yeah.
you can talk about how bad the system was and how underpowered it was and how stupid the waggle controls were, but
Yeah.
that like first few months, everyone loved Wii Sports. It
Hmm.
was great, right?
Yeah.
So when they announced Nintendo Switch Sports, I was like, oh yeah, this would be fun, because
Hmm.
Wii Sports was always a fun party game.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, the sports and the waggle controls and all that, like everything's a lot more precise because obviously things have changed in 15 years. Like
Yeah.
you're playing tennis and it actually somewhat goes in the direction you're hitting it this time.
Nice.
Like, and I was doing bowling and stuff like that. And I
Mm,
remember on the original Wii, like I just figured out where to do it and like twist the remote as far as
exactly.
possible, and you just hit strike every time.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't really do that this time because
Okay.
they're a bit more like precise and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
I don't think you need tennis and badminton.
Well, okay, and Grant, maybe I misunderstood this from the trailer, but in the trailer for tennis, they showed it as doubles. Is it
Yeah.
doubles only?
Um. Yeah. It was in Wii Sports as well. I thought.
I thought it was. Oh, okay. Maybe I'm just
Yeah,
misremembering.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought you could do
Because you
one on one.
control
And
you control both.
okay, maybe you're right. But
Yeah,
then
yeah.
badminton, that's just one on one,
One on
right?
one. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why. Okay.
yeah. And then there's volleyball. That's new.
Okay.
Football or soccer, and also I forget what it's called, but like the sword thing.
Oh, kendo
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
or something like yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so here's the main issue I have with it. Everything like is fine.
Hmm.
It all works exactly as it's meant to. It doesn't have the character that the original Wii Sports had.
In okay, so you play as Mii's, I'm assuming, right?
No, you
Or,
don't. You play with these people
oh,
that look like the Facebook meta people.
oh,
Yeah,
that's
it's like honestly,
okay.
it doesn't look like a Nintendo game. It is on it. It feels like something like Ubisoft when, oh, let's make a Wii Sports knockoff of the Switch.
Oh, like the Connect Sports kind of stuff?
Yeah, 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 yeah. They just don't look like they have like they look more like people and like cartoony people, but they don't have
Right.
that sort of character. Because like
Okay,
I
I see
think,
what you mean.
yeah, I think everyone made Hitler and me and had him in their boxing game at some point.
They had to cut that out for the Switch.
Yeah. I mean, we
It
all like put Mr. T in your baseball team, weren't there?
well, that's the fun thing because with the Wii, yeah, the Mii, as stupid as the Mii's might sound, you could have that goofy fun with them, and they would get inserted into games, and that in a sense gave it that character. So then if you strip that out, it's just kind of this. I'm assuming it sounds like more of like a bland, kind of flat sort of experience, I guess.
Well, honestly, it looks like a kids' version of like an official Olympics game
Mm,
because they're all like skinny
okay.
bodies, big heads. They just look. They don't have the character that they had in the Mii's, which is weird because like you're doing these sports and in the background you see people like watching the games and they're all
Hmm.
clapping and stuff. It just feels very sterile. It looks too clean. It doesn't look real. And not that the Mii's looked real, but it's like it
Yeah,
just
no, I know what you mean.
yeah,
It's, I mean, Wii Sports did have a vibe to it, and it was that weird Nintendo mid 2000s. Like it is it is hard to describe. It is a very clear point in time, and
yeah.
it's like okay, you try to like bring that and modernize it, and it's like it doesn't quite work anymore. It doesn't reflect the same time almost, I guess.
Well, it's like people didn't have legs and stuff, and they had those little arms, didn't they? And
Yeah,
stuff. But they actually have arms and legs now, and I don't know. It just doesn't have that. Technically, this is a better game
right,
because
right.
the controls better, all that stuff, but it doesn't have that sort of fun attitude about it as much.
Hmm.
It does feel very bland, and it's hard to pinpoint and say like I would recommend you play Wii Sports instead when technically the bowling's worse.
Well, I was gonna say, if they just brought over Wii Sports like one to one and it was literally just a port, do you think
Hmm.
that would have been okay?
Yeah, if they'd like kept the style and everything like that. I tell you one issue I did have as well. I've not like got huge hands or anything, but the
Yeah.
Wii remote fit like snugly into your hand,
Yeah. Hmm.
whereas like the Switch Joy Cons I feel are too small.
Yeah, literally. It's funny you'd say that. Yesterday, I was playing. I mean, we were playing Jeopardy yesterday. Not exactly the most active game by any means, but it's a game that when you want to play multiplayer, you have to hold the Joy Cons like on the side or whatever. And like every time a game forces me to do that, I'm like, I hate it because like my hands are like this and cramped.
Yeah,
But at your point, even if you're just holding it, it feels like I'm just crushing this remote or something.
yeah.
And I don't. It just feels odd. I see what you mean by that.
Yeah, when like you played Wii Sports back in the day as well, I think that remote was perfect for like this could be a baseball bat, this could be a tennis
Right.
racket, this could be your bowling, this could be a golf club. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, if that strap weren't on, this thing would be flying everywhere.
Well, did you see? Well, okay, so that I think there's already stories of people breaking
Yeah.
TVs with Switch Sports. So that's I'm glad that meme hasn't died, so that makes me laugh. But I think there's companies who have already started making like the actual plastic attachments of like the rackets and the bats that you can put Joy
Oh
Cons
yeah, they
in.
used to do that, didn't they?
So if you want that experience, I guess you technically could do that.
Yeah, I'm not buying that crap. I remember like being in like a Best Buy type place once
Right.
when like the Wii came out and seeing the shop assistant tell these two women that they needed like the baseball rat.
You
Like,
have to.
yeah, they like this guy was making it sound like the game wouldn't work
Right.
unless you had it. And like, there's me who actually knows stuff about video games.
Like,
I'm like, this guy, what? He's not. He's probably not even on commission. It's Best
yeah,
Buy.
he's just fucking with him at that point.
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
So, I mean, okay, so would you say now that you've played it a little bit, next time you had like people over and you want to just have a party game, do you think you would still break this game out or would you rather just play something else?
here's the thing: is I think with Wii Sports was always fun to break out, and everyone enjoyed it. I think
Hmm.
you would break this game out and go, "Hey guys, this is like the new Wii Sports," and everyone would
Hmm.
try it once, and that'd be it. I
Yeah.
don't see anyone being like when they come around, like, "Oh, let's have a Switch Sports party."
Hmm.
Like people who legit used to go around people's houses to
Yeah.
play Wii Sports.
Yeah, I did that too with a friend of
Yeah,
mine. Yeah, anytime I'd come over, even if we played other games later, we would, yeah, just to like get something started and have fun. Yeah, we would play the bowling
yeah.
game and yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I don't. I can imagine like anyone who comes round and sees it like on my shelf, like, oh, you got it. Yeah, come on, let's like play a game of bowling. Okay, done. But then I don't think they're going to be like, let's have a night where we have drinks and we play Wii bowling, Switch bowling.
Yeah. So,
Like,
well, okay, so out of curiosity, though, do you think that feeling is exclusive to this game, or do you think? Okay, and the reason why I ask this is I'm curious how you feel about this with other Switch party-ish games. Do you also feel that way with other Switch party games? Because, like, for
no,
example, because like there's the Mario Party, not
yeah,
not the so the most recent one where it was like a collection of all the best ones up till now. Like, do you feel the same thing with that, or not necessarily?
no, because we've legit like had people around to play that. We've been like, oh,
Okay.
I have a couple friends. We're like, we'll have some drinks, have a pizza,
Yeah.
and we'll play Mario Party or whatever, and
Okay.
it's fun, and
Okay.
we would do it again. Whereas, yeah, I feel like this is more you're going to show people like, oh, Wii Sports has changed. And they go, that's cool. It just hasn't got that character and the uniqueness anymore.
Because because on one hand, I was gonna say, is there like not enough games? And I know there's DLC for like golf or whatever
There's
coming
six.
later.
There's technically more than there was on Wii Sports.
Yeah, so it's not. It's exactly. So okay, there's enough games. The technical aspect sounds like it's better,
Yeah,
but once again, from your point, there's a feeling missing. But what I'm curious
yeah,
also about though is our judgment somewhat biased because we know what Wii Sports maybe was at the time. Like if you give someone Switch Sports now who never played Wii Sports, I'm curious if they would also find it the same. To be honest, I don't know.
I don't know because like also as well, Wii Sports was everyone's introduction to the Wii because it came with it.
That's a good
So
point.
that was the first thing everyone played with the Wii. Whereas for 5 years now, people have had Switches.
That's a good point. And yeah, I mean, it was the pack-in title. It came with it. Everyone basically had to have it by default. So people
Yeah,
eventually just sort of got used to it. And I know when the Switch came out, I never played this, but there was that like, oh, what
one
was it
two
called?
Switch.
Yeah, yeah, that one. And I I think that was attempting to be the Switch's version of like that go to sort of fun party, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone that I know of that's actually played it.
Yeah, well, the thing is like I remember the day I got the Wii, I got like Wii Sports, and I got
Hmm.
like Twilight Princess, right?
Yeah.
And Twilight Princess is obviously something I would have been more excited about, but you're like, let's try out this thing that I've seen in all the commercials where you like use a sword or bowl and golf and things like that. So you did. That was the first thing everyone did with it.
Well, and I guess it's also one of those situations where the Wii was that breakout moment where it was the gyroscopic controls, and this system was made to do those things. And yeah, even though the Switch can do those things, I almost wonder if it's like, okay, the gimmick isn't like it's a gimmick, like it truly is a gimmick now that it's dead. You don't really need to showcase that again.
Mhm.
So maybe that's why the excitement isn't there anymore because it's just not that new thing anymore, I guess. But to your point, even the vibe of how it looks is different too. So I guess it sounds like it's a couple of factors at that point then.
Yeah, I mean, there's meant to be more games coming to it and stuff, and sports. But honestly don't feel like there's anything where I'm like going to be like, oh, I've got to log in the day it comes out and try this out, and this is going to be the thing that makes me change my opinion. Like,
Well, but is it just golf or is there actually more coming?
there is like more coming. So I've sent
Oh,
you
okay.
a picture, right,
Hmm.
on Discord of
Yeah.
how this looks, and tell me
All
this doesn't look like Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook metaverse.
right. All right. I haven't seen too many screenshots of this, but now that you're saying that, I kind of get what you mean now. Because once again, the Mii's did have that very distinct look, but to your point, this very much is like that meta avatar kind of look. So yeah, I see what you mean now. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
doesn't
little
look fun.
yeah.
It looks corporate.
Exact. It's very sterile. Maybe that's a good
Hmm.
way of like saying like it's very it's the most non-offensive way of representing people and granted I guess you kind of have to in a sense whereas me's they were just a bunch of stupid looking like goofy characters.
Also, you can't. There's like very specific facial features because you can't make
uh
Hitler. Trust me, I've tried.
Is it like if you picked very specific combinations it's just like no you can't do that?
Well, like the only beard you can pick is one that's like under the chin. It's like nothing over the lip. I'm like, I guess they're like nothing good happens over the lip.
Okay, they've had a lot of R&D on the facial feature development.
I just, there was someone at Nintendo who was like, whose job it was like, try and make this person look as much like Hitler as possible.
There's this top secret database of just the worst creations of people, and you can never go to it.
Yeah. Um,
Oh man. Okay. So I guess I'll wrap up then. I mean, how do you recommend this then?
it's tough. At the moment, where it's like $40, I would give
Hmm.
it a thumbs down just because this is very much you're gonna try out the waggle controls and that's it. I
Hmm.
don't. No one's gonna be banging this out every weekend to
Hmm.
play. There's much better party games on the Switch, like we said, Mario Party, Mario Kart, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Um, if they add a few more sports and it goes down to like $10-$20, which
Hmm.
Nintendo never does, then my opinion would be different. But at the moment, yeah, I would give it a thumbs down.
Okay. Is it online at all or no?
You can, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I guess that's something. Oh, and actually, wait a minute. Did I see on the box, or maybe this was only like a retailer specific thing? Does it come with like another leg strap for like
Yeah,
those games?
yeah. So
Okay.
for the football, like soccer game, you can use
Mm.
it to kick.
Ah, okay. Well, I guess that's a little bit more interactivity, I suppose. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate. Yeah. I mean, this seems like a game I will. It's one of those games where I almost feel like obligated to get it, even though I know I will get probably minimal use out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a tough one, but okay, that's a fair assessment. If it goes down in price, then yeah, I'll probably pick it up at some point. Because yeah, I do enjoy these types of games, but very much on a infrequent basis, is what it sounds like. Very cool, though. All
All
right.
right. Over to you.
Okay. So, question for you.
Yep.
What do you know about Star Trek?
So here's my history with Star Trek.
Okay.
I have seen Galaxy Quest.
Mm-hmm.
That is it.
The best Star Trek movie.
Honestly, I watched that recently, and I was like, this would have been great if they could have got this cast of the original Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would have been
Yeah.
amazing. Like,
Yeah, Galaxy Quest is a hilarious movie. I love that movie.
Yeah.
I think honestly, anyone who loves Star Trek or not, it just thinks it's a good movie. But especially when it pokes fun at like sci-fi, like convention nerd type of people, which of course I am one of those people. It is a fun movie. It's really good. And Alan Rickman, R.I.P. What a great guy.
But
So,
I'd say it's my biggest like black spot in like nerdom because I've never watched an episode. I've never watched a movie.
oh, okay, so not even the more recent movies you haven't watched.
No, the Chris
Oh,
Pine ones.
okay.
No.
Okay, well, okay, so maybe let me ask, how come? Is it just because there's so much, like you don't know where to start, or do you just genuinely not have an interest?
Honestly, it is a bit of that. It's like I am someone who's like I've got to watch it from the beginning to the end. And when there's like
Hmm.
not a definitive start point, it's like, well, I've never really got into comic books
Yeah,
because they're like, oh, just start wherever. Like if you Google it, you're going to get 15 different answers.
sure, of course.
And I'm like, with Star Trek as well, it is one of those things where there is a start and there is an end. You could essentially watch it in the order it came out, but there's a fucking lot of it.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah, okay, but I guess to clarify though, if there was some reasonable way to tackle it, not even in its entirety, but at least to get the gist of
Oh
certain
yeah, yeah,
aspects, do you think that's something you would be interested in
yeah, yeah, yeah,
trying
yeah.
to understand?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've thought a few times about just like people have told me like, oh, don't watch the original series, just start with New Generation or the movies, and
Hmm.
I've looked at it and I've just been like, yeah, but that's like 8 seasons and it's like 45 minutes an episode. Like that's the issue I have. It's not out of stubbornness or anything. It's more
Yeah.
just the fact that there's a lot of it, and there's shorter things to tackle in life.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. So right off the bat, I will say, yeah, I love Star Trek. I've been watching it since I was probably early high school. I mean, frankly, it's why I became an engineer professionally because it meant a lot to me. And so it's been a part of my, I guess, at least half my life by this point. Um, and so I have watched all of Star Trek. And when I say all, I literally mean I've watched every episode, every movie, and this year in particular is very interesting. So I'm going to focus maybe more on the more recent stuff to an extent because this year in particular is insane for Star Trek. And that's where I feel like a lot of people don't realize because so right now Paramount Plus, the streaming service, it used to be called CBS All Access, but then Paramount did we're in the year of acquisitions or the years lately, and so Paramount Plus did their mega streaming service. They got all kinds of stuff, not just Star Trek, but they have like MTV and Nickelodeon, all sorts of stuff. But that's like the home of Star Trek now, and so that's where all the new series are. So here's the thing: did you even know that there's new Star Trek shows going on right now?
Yeah, I know that Patrick Stewart's one Picard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. So that's one. How many shows do you think Star Trek shows are going to have at least a season new or recurring this year?
I've heard of two. I think. Is there one called Star Trek Discovery?
That's one of them. Hmm.
Yeah, Star Trek Picard. I know. There's some animated one.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah,
So in total, there are five this year.
that's too much.
So and yes, I will get into that in just a second. But this
This
year
isn't
alone,
making me want to catch up.
yeah, no, exactly. So that's the thing. This year alone, there are either new or reoccurring seasons, 5 different shows on Paramount Plus for Star Trek. So yes, it is a lot. So before getting into some of the more recent stuff, I guess to answer your question potentially or to help around like where to start and stuff like that. So that's the cool thing is, yes, there is one massive continuity that's been going on since 1967 or 68, something like that. So like little over 50 years. So obviously, yeah, there's a shit ton, right? It's no wonder people have a hard time of like, well, where the hell do I even start? So that's the cool thing though, because within that, obviously there's a bunch of movies too, but there are now, well, not including some of the more recent ones, but in a general sense, 7-ish kind of core shows that have multiple seasons of each. And so the beauty though is each one of those shows can be consumed as its own thing, which I think is that immediately will help people of where to potentially start. And then I can then, depending on what type of show you want, can potentially tell you which one to go to first. And then if you like it, then just go pick a different one and then go watch that one. And you're not really, honestly, going to like miss anything major. The only thing where it really helps is if you end up liking it, then you'll see like, oh, I get why they did this in this later season. It's because of something that happened in this other series. And that's where I think Star Trek has the most insane like lore in continuity of any franchise, because it's been going on the longest and there's just so much of it, and it's crazy to keep up. So, but I will say, I guess right off the bat, or maybe just do this really quickly, my favorite out of all of them is actually a least popular opinion. It's not the original series, and it's not even Next Generation. My favorite is Deep Space Nine, which was kind of almost created to some extent as a spin-off of Next Generation, but it ended up being very different in for a lot of different ways, and it's a really really cool series. Like I would even go as far as to say that Deep Space Nine is the reason why modern television is now serialized as opposed to episodic. And like Deep Space Nine like ushered in aspect. It was a mix of both, because a lot of Star Trek is like every episode is a different one every week. It's a new
Monster of the
story.
week type thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But in Deep Space Nine very much was that, but they experimented with having long form storytelling over like a season or maybe 5 or 6 episodes, because like a lot of shows up to that point were very much like, at most it would be like a holy crap, there's a two-parter where they have something on a cliffhanger and then they like wrap it up the next episode. But like Deep Space Nine had a lot of longer form episodes, so that's my favorite. And then there's a whole host of other reasons. Maybe one day I'll do a Deep Space Nine like debunk, but or not debunk, sorry, debrief. But anyways, in recent years, though, there's been a bit of a resurgence with Star Trek. Yeah, there's the J.J. Abrams movies, which the best way I describe those, honestly, are they're fun action movies that happen to be set in the Star Trek universe. I wouldn't call them good Star Trek stories or movies, but they're still fun. Like, I'm not so like much of an asshole. I go, oh my god, I can't enjoy these because it's not my Star Trek. Or there's a lot of people who say that shit, and it's like whatever. Like they're fun movies, just don't take them too seriously, type of thing. And
Wait,
apparently
you're
there's going to
telling
be
people on the
yeah.
internet not to take things seriously?
Yeah, I know. God forbid, right? There's a lot of outrage, especially in the Star Trek community, of course. But they're fun movies, and apparently there's going to be a fourth one. Recent rumors said they're going to come out with another one.
I think Quentin
So
Tarantino was going to make one at one point, which I would have
there was
watched.
so that would have been interesting. I would be curious to see what he would do with that. I don't know if that's been officially debunked, but he was in the running, threw his hat in the ring
I'm
for that
tired
one.
of these
But
motherfucking Klingons.
see, that would be interesting. I would, and that's I think the beauty of the series is it takes so many different genre swings that something like that could work, and it would be like, yeah, that makes sense for Star Trek. Like, why not? So, which is cool about that, but. In recent years, there's been a bit of a resurgence, but a lot of people don't realize it because it's exclusively on the streaming service. It's like none of the new Star Trek is on like actual TV. It's only on like now Paramount Plus, but once again, formerly CBS All Access. So it started with Discovery, which was basically a prequel to the original series, even though there was already a prequel to the original series that came out in the 2000s called Enterprise. But this is like a prequel that happens a little bit later. And so Discovery is still going, and that one is a little divisive, I'll say. Some people love it, some people really fucking hate it because it's it's fine. I don't hate it by any means. I think it's good. I think it looks awesome. The storytelling is just a little repetitive. It's kind of the same thing over and over and over again, and it's very much like long form, season long arc, kind of modern television. It's not like episodic at
I think
all.
we're seeing that with a lot of streaming services, though, where it's not so much actually making the content good, it's just having piles upon piles of content on your streaming service. Because you've
Exactly.
not necessarily got to be good, you've just got to have a good trailer to hook people into subscribe.
Exactly. And I will say, like I said, that there's a lot of good to be had in Discovery. I think it is good, but I think they're kind of reaching. It's almost not overstate its welcome, but it's like I don't really see where else they're going with it right now. But I'm curious. I'll be cautiously optimistic of how this next season goes. I think it premieres at the end of this year, early next year. So the latest season of it ended like 3-4 months ago. Then after that got started becoming at least because it was a bringing back of Star Trek, they greenlit a kind of a brief spin-off show called Star Trek Shorts, which was just like little 15-minute bite-sized like mini stories. That was kind of a cool experimental little thing to tell just random stories about Star Trek. And I was like, okay, well that's not a bad idea, and that one's fine. And then though after that happened, of course, people are like, well, how can we get back some of these legacy characters from the like next generation and all that sort of stuff?
Remember
And then that's
berries
when
or
yeah. And so that's when Patrick Stewart was kind of approached about like, hey, how would you want to talk about like Picard coming back? And at first he even said no. He was like, why? Like, why would I want to do this? Like, there's how else could we do this? And he eventually apparently agreed, and he even like retooled the story with them because he was like the original story they proposed was like maybe not the greatest. I guess I'm sure he said it in a better way, but they brought him back, and then now like just this past week season 2 of Picard wrapped up, and Picard is a very I'm like torn about it because it's on one hand, I love Patrick Stewart. It's great to see him again, and do have some legacy characters that come back. But like the new story that they're telling, it's one of those things like what you just said a second ago. It's content for the sake of having it,
yeah,
and it's story for the sake of just like, oh, remember Picard? He's still alive. Like he's still
yeah.
kicking.
Also, Patrick
Yeah.
Stewart's like a phenomenal actor, but I saw him in something recently,
Hmm.
and I looked it up afterwards. The guy's 81, which don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, he is fantastic for his age.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where you're like, let the dude fucking rest.
Yeah. Did you know, actually, speaking of that, I knew he was married. What I did not realize that his wife is like half his age. Like
No,
literally. She's like 40 or 42 or something. And I'm like, huh, that I did not see that coming. Yeah,
I
that
mean
was a weird one.
he looks great for his age. I'm not going to
Yeah,
knock him
yeah.
for that.
Yeah, no. I mean, sounds like they're in a happy marriage, but it kind of, I thought it was like a typo when I saw this online. I'm like, wait, what? No, his wife's like half his age.
She's like, I want
Um,
some of that Star Trek money.
exactly, exactly. So once again, it's nice to see him, and I think that a lot of people have problems with this show pretty much across the board because once again, it's like he kind of doesn't really feel like Picard anymore, but at the same time, it's been like it takes place real time, 19 years later or 20 years later from when the last Star Trek movie that he was in took place, which is like in the year 2000, and so like it's like oh, actually 20 years has passed since like that time, and so I think the criticism is a little weird when people say, "Well, it doesn't feel like the same Picard," and it's like, yeah, he's an old fucking man now. Like, what do you like? He's not going to be gallivanting, shooting shit all over the place. Like, what do you expect is going to happen? But funny enough, in the show, there actually is a little bit of that, and it kind of looks a little weird, which then sort
Yeah,
of proves my point of like when they try to do that. Yeah, you want to see like an 80-year-old man like rolling on the ground shooting fucking lasers? Like, what do you think's going
I would want to see
I mean,
that.
so yeah, if that doesn't sell you on Picard, I don't know what. So overall, and they've actually already announced. So season 3 is going to be their last, and they've already shot it. I think it's going to come out later this year. They shot season 2 and 3 back to back, basically, and they've already announced like yeah, season 3 of Picard is the last one. This will truly be the end of like Picard's story and all that sort of stuff. So
So
I'm
he's
glad they're doing
dying
it.
then.
Yeah. I don't want to spoil anything that may have happened in the last two seasons, but I don't think they'll necessarily kill him off. But I think it's just going to be like he's going to live a happy life now, and like just fucking leave him alone, like just let him rest. So I don't know. I certainly don't hate the show. It's just, was it necessary? Not really. Like they
No.
didn't need to do this. So that kind of is all right. And then as far as the other, so those are kind of the two core shows. There's Discovery and Picard. However, there are other shows. So there's Star Trek Lower Decks, which is the animated show that I think you had mentioned. So that one is actually really funny. So it's basically it's a half-hour comedy animated show, and I think they had like a former Rick and Morty writer like help out with the writing. So it's like kind of in that goofy, zany style, but just in Star Trek. But it's more like you don't even have to know anything about Star Trek because it's just kind of a funny animated show you can throw on. But they also sort of poke fun at Star Trek a little bit, but like in a nice kind of funny way. Um, Overall, like it's good. I would recommend it. I mean, obviously, if you like Star Trek, you'll like it. But even if not, and you happen to have Paramount Plus, I mean, like I wouldn't subscribe just for this, but if you have it, it's still a fun watch to check out. It's just just a kind of a goofy, comedy show basically. Um, that was show 3. So show 4 that premiered early this year, a brand new. So Star Trek Lower Decks season 2 ended early this year. Season 3, I think, is going to be later this year. So a brand new show that premiered is one that Star Trek is billing as the first show exclusively made for kids, like Star Trek show made for kids. It's called Star Trek Prodigy,
So
and
is
the
it just
hook
people
to
flossing on like the SS Enterprise?
yeah, it's just a Star Trek meme show. That's all it is.
Yeah. They
But
open
it's
just
this
Kinder eggs.
exactly. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's a kids show. It's kind of in that Pixar 3D animation, kind of looking show. The hook to get legacy Star Trek fans into it is that it has a character from Star Trek Voyager, which is another show that's deeply involved with it. So that's kind of like to still get those people interested. I mean, it's a kids show. I watch it just because why not? It's fine. It's just if you have kids, show it to them. It'll be a nice way to like show them like, hey, here's a fun show like about Star Trek that you can watch together. So that's cool. That was the first season, so nothing like groundbreaking, but once again, it's a kids show. I can't really expect a whole lot by any means. But now we get to the 5th show that premiered just this past Thursday. So this is the one. So full circle here, back to how could I get you into Star Trek potentially? So this show it's called Strange New Worlds, Star Trek Strange New Worlds season, like I said, just premiered. It is, without going into a sane, stupid amount of lore here, the best way I can describe it is the captain. It's the Enterprise again. It's the crew, and it takes place in the era of the original series, and it's an episodic show as well. So it's not long form for the most part. Maybe like little bits just for like character arcs, but it's like a monster of the week type of show, which Star Trek hasn't done in a very long time. So it takes place with a captain that was before Kirk from the original series, but it has some of the same characters, like Spock is in it, and Uhura, and like a few other characters that are from like the original series. But it's not Captain Kirk; it's a different captain. And if you happen to have Paramount Plus, which if you don't, then once again, I wouldn't like specifically get it just for this, but if you happen to have it and you want to try like a new Star Trek that's starting like just now, then that's one I would recommend for you because, like I said, it's a monster of the week type of show, but it's modern in the sense of like it's obviously being made now, but it takes place in that original series era. And I watched the first episode the other day, and it was awesome. Like it was very very refreshing to see a modern take on old Star Trek, but not just like the same old tropes and shit over and over again, but like a very, very good take on it. So I feel like that is a show if you wanted to get like the most modern way to watch Star Trek, but still that old feel, then this would be very much a show I would recommend for you or anyone who maybe wanted to start off. I mean, granted, it's literally just one episode so far, but the way they've built it is very much to get at that type of audience. So I'm excited. It was a really good first episode. And yeah, I'm curious to see where they go with it. So I guess this isn't so much I mean, I know I briefly talked about each of the more modern shows, some of them good, some of them not so great, but overall, I'm excited to see more Star Trek. I'm a big fan of it, but at the end of the day, my favorite is still Deep Space Nine, and that's why also my avatar, whenever I stream or whenever I do stuff, if you see the dude with the giant ears, Quark, he's from Deep Space Nine, so that's why I use that avatar.
I'm sorry, I zoned out. You said you were going to talk about Star Trek.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could have just stepped out for like 30 minutes. I could have just talked to your wall behind you, and I should have just done that. So I guess I'll ask you again. If maybe okay, let me maybe ask you one more question really quick then. So if you were like truly like, yeah, I want to start watching some sort of Star Trek, but you're not sure where to start, like what would you want to know to help you decide what type of show or which one to start with?
Honestly, I would want to just start. I'm always release order. I would. I know, like,
Release order, okay.
yeah. All of that stuff. When you hear people are like going to watch the MCU in like chronological order, I'm like, that just it wouldn't make sense when you watch it like that. Like, watch it the same way everyone else watched it. It was like Metal Gear Solid. Someone we knew played it in
Yeah.
the order that the game takes place, and I'm like, what? No, that's not how it's meant to be consumed.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always that going to be that debate with any media franchise, especially when it comes to like Star Trek or Star Wars or Marvel and all that sort of stuff. I think with Star Trek, because each of the different series and movies have taken especially the more recent ones, they are very serious about not screwing up the canon, because especially with Star Trek, because it's just so effing massive. Granted, there's still going to be some shit that slips through every once in a while, and it's fine. But I will actually say you could watch Star Trek in like in universe chronology, I guess you could call it, and you would it wouldn't really be a problem per se. But I will say, on occasion, of course, there might be some of those weird like winks and nods, like, hey. Like if you've never seen some of the later series, but then you watch one of those prequel ones, and they unexpectedly focus on this one character for some odd reason, and you're like, "What the hell is going on?" But then, like to someone who's watched it, you're like, I see what's going on." Then maybe, yeah, you might miss out something like that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm not
either
against
way,
it. I'm sure one day I'll watch something Star Trek.
yeah,
But
yeah. When the
the
day comes, just let me know.
yeah,
I'll guide you through this massive spider web here.
one of the cool Star Trek stories I have got is the guy who used to live across from me when I still lived at home with my mum and dad. His father went away on holiday, on vacation, and he was a big Star Trek fan. And he'd come back, and his house had been robbed. And the only thing they had left was his Star Trek DVDs. They had gutted the house, like, completely. Like, this took his TVs, everything.
We don't need that shit.
They just left the Star Trek. They even took all his other DVDs.
Just the start. That's pretty damn funny. Yeah, that's just worse than trash. You can just throw that shit out. That is pretty funny.
Yeah.
That's a good time. Oh goodness. But yes,
So,
Star Trek's a fun time. I'd recommend
Paramount Plus overall with Star Trek content. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
So with Star Trek content, it's great because essentially what's happened, well, I guess maybe this is up for debate, but what Paramount Plus has been doing is they're pulling like the old Star Trek shows from all the other services, because you used to be able to find all of Star Trek on Netflix, and they would even have it on like Amazon or maybe even Hulu. But because now Paramount Plus is this new, everyone has a damn streaming service now, but because Paramount Plus owns Star Trek, all the new stuff is only on there, to my knowledge, but all the legacy stuff, as the contracts expire from like Netflix and Hulu, they're not renewing them. They're putting them exclusively on Paramount Plus now. So if you want all of your Star Trek fix, you can go there. Not for the series, for the movies, for everything. So for Star Trek content, yeah, it's definitely a thumbs up in that sense. But obviously, like, if you don't want yet another streaming service, yeah, it sucks. Obviously for that. But then, as far as Paramount Plus overall, I would actually also say Paramount Plus is relatively thumbs up, because there is a lot of other cool stuff. But I'll just be honest, if it wasn't for Star Trek, I wouldn't keep it like a consistent subscription for it. But since I have it, there are other stuff on there that I watch, which isn't bad at all, especially some newer movies like Jackass 4 and Scream 5. Sonic 2 is going to be coming there in a couple weeks because I still haven't watched that yet. So I'm just going to wait for it to go on Paramount Plus and I'll just watch it on that.
Yeah.
So
All right.
overall, Star Trek good. If anyone wants more recommendations, let me know. I'll be happy to do a 15-hour dissertation here. It's a good time. So, anyways, but as always, thanks for joining. Today was a fun. Actually, went on a little bit longer than I was expecting because Star Trek can definitely take up a little bit more time, and obviously Elden Ring. But yeah, so as always, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for joining me today, of course.
No problem.
Make sure to subscribe to us on here, on Twitter, Tojo Dojo, Twitch, and we'll be back again in another week with all the other fun stuff we've been watching. Oh, I didn't even mention the Star Trek comics. Fuck. All right. Like, here. Hey, do you have 3 more hours, actually? No, cut it.
I gotta get away.
Just cut it. All right. Take it easy, guys. See you later.
Have a good one.